Hi there, and welcome to this wonderful episode where we chat with Claire Sewell, self-mastery coach. Claire works with female entrepreneurs and coaches who feel frustrated with their results. She helps them upgrade to the version of themselves they need to be and have the business and lifestyle they desire. But this bio really does not do the justice to what Claire is talking about, to who she is, the energy that she brings in. We talk about so many wonderful things that really fill us with joy and gratitude and positive vibrations. We touch on the principles of the mind, how we're creating our reality. We look at the cycles of reality, how the experiences that come from within and not from external circumstances really shape our world. We talk about energetics. We talk about sun hopping and creating our life to suit our preferences. There's so much wonderful, juicy, but mostly positive, exciting, empowering things that we talk about today with Claire. So I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in.
But before we dive in, I just want to remind you about our Patreon account. And also, did you know we have a newsletter? You can get the links for both in the description. Our newsletter is just the information that we send out twice a month. So do sign up because there's some really useful little bits of information in there. Our Patreon account is a community that we are building, and all those beautiful gold nuggets go into the paid version of Patreon. But we do have a free version where old little bite-sized snippets are there from older episodes. It just saves you scrolling through hundreds of episodes to try and find something that you're looking for. Do come and look for us. Click on the links. We love this community. It is growing, and we'd love for you to be part of it. But now let's get on with this really fantastic conversation that we had with Claire.
Could not be more excited to have Claire here with us today. Hi, Claire. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Lincoln. What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
I really, truly appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you, to really, spend a moment talking to you and about your experience, about your perspective on life, because I think that you have such a unique approach to life that I really think our listeners will appreciate. But before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you are right now and what you do there, what brought you there, anything that you think that our listeners might find interesting. I know there's so much.
Sure. Well, I am currently in New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand, but I've lived outside of New Zealand for pretty much, probably about half of my life. So mostly I've been in the UK for about 20 years. And in my coaching journey, I realized that when I wanted to start my business, I was like, well, what did I want my life to look like? So rather than looking at my business, I wanted to make that a part of my life. So what would my life by design look like when I had, a flourishing business? And so I sort of started with the end of mind and worked back. And one of the things I wanted to do was have, get back to spending a lot of time in New Zealand with mum and dad, who are, in their sort of still young, very young, but they're sort of in their 70s. And I have spent sort of 20 years not in New Zealand. So I wanted to spend more time with family and friends. And so probably around 2020, I think it was, that I started living and working from different places in the world. So I'm in New Zealand for about 4 or 5 months of the year. I then go to France and then I go to the UK. So I like to follow the sun around, is what I say. My business is Swell Coach. I have a passion for the ocean, and the swell was in swell to your full potential as well. So there's so much in the metaphor of the ocean that I find, looking at human potential, human behavior, how we can sometimes get carried away and identify as the ripples on the ocean, the ripples being the challenges that we might have in our life, whereas actual fact we're designed to thrive. So we're the quiet, calm, the force of the depth of the ocean. So lots of little metaphors in the Swell Coach, as well as it being a play on words. When I was growing up at school, I used to get called Claire Swell all the time. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do in my business. I work with female entrepreneurs, business owners, and coaches who have probably been in the business for about 2 to 3 years. They've been doing all the things, and they're just feeling frustrated because they're not getting the results that they desire. So I work with them, we look at their mindset, we look at their energy, we get them into energetic alignment with their vision, and I help support them become the version they need to be for the life that they desire to have. So I support them in creating their life by design.
I love that. And I love all sorts of metaphors, especially when they're related to the sea, because even though I did not grow up near the sea, I think that's the reason why I'm always craving being by the sea, just called by the power. And there's something also about the waves that, life and business and things do happen in waves. Sometimes it's a smaller wave and sometimes it's a huge wave. And we need to kind of learn how to surf these and how to be aware of the huge ones and how to enjoy the calm of the sea. So I can imagine that there is a wealth of opportunities for beautiful metaphors and storytelling wrapped up in the sea.
That's you got it.
But you touched on the power of the mind. And it's something that we're so intrigued by in here. We love talking about, the different perspectives of how we can tap into more of our mind. And I know that this is a huge part of what you do, kind of the principles of mind, kind of how our minds, our thoughts are shaping our reality and, talking about your life, how you design your business, you definitely have full control. It feels like you have a control over your mind, over your reality, and you've intentionally, consciously designed how you live and how you work. But it starts all in our mind. So could you tell us a bit more about your perspective on the power of the mind, on the control over mind, and how that then creates the reality that we live in?
Yeah, sure. I think that was one of the first really powerful realizations for me when I did I studied psychology I did a psychology course for a couple of years, and the first insight that I got was that it's called the cycle of reality, which was basically that our thoughts and our beliefs create our feelings, which dictate our behaviors, which then dictate our actions, which give us our results. And when I looked at the depth of what that cycle was showing me, because that's what we're living in 365 days of the year, 24/7, what that's actually telling us is that our thoughts and our beliefs are creating our results. So we're in a world where it feels like we're living, life is happening to us, but actually it's happening through us. It's happening through our perception of how we perceive circumstances and situations. And so when I started seeing that, I was like, right, well, the first place for me to look really seriously and deeply and to contemplate is what's going on in my mind, what's my inner narrative, what's the quality of my thoughts. And to be honest, it was pretty stinky in there. So I'd been riddled with imposter syndrome for most of my corporate life, despite my success as a salesperson and then sales leader. Doing very well, got all the titles, the promotions, the salary to go with it. But I never thought I never thought that I was, that I was worthy of the success, and that I felt like I was a fraud and I was a fake, and that I was going to get found out. I didn't know what imposter syndrome was at that time. So, I'd been riddled by that. So that was sort of the first place that I started looking at what's the quality of my thoughts on a regular basis. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? So what's that's creating my results? And that's just been a lifelong, and well, it's probably about 10 years now, but it's been a long inquiry since I've started looking into it.
And there's so much to say about that, we often believe that the reality is something that's external, that there's so much that is outside of our control, and we often feel like we're the victim of our circumstances, that, oh, poor me, this is happening to me. It's just so hard to deal with, the world around us and other people and what other people want to do and say and how they behave. And that didn't impacts us. And I always say that we tend to believe and rely on everyone else so much more than we actually understand what we want and what we feel and what believe in. That from the early ages, we are taught to listen to others, to our parents, to our teachers, to our bosses, to our supervisors, to our authorities, and there's so little time spent encouraging kids and young adults and any kind of a human being to listen to themselves and trust themselves and focus on the internal world. So what you're talking about is absolutely in alignment with kind of my experience as well. And talking about then the imposter syndrome and feeling not worthy, how did you then came about to start overcoming it? And really, were there any, tools or practices or books or resources or anything that would have helped you then to start overcoming the imposter syndrome, start looking more into practicing this self-inquiry, to look inwards, to then shape the outside world? Is there anything practical that maybe our listeners will like and might find helpful to start tapping into for themselves?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, firstly, to your point about, growing up, it's really it's a powerful thing for us to see that we were taught at a very young age to outsource our power. We were taught at a very young age that our value depended on our grades, that our value depended on whether we were pleasing mum and dad, whether we were good enough at sports, etc. So we are stuck in this system of thinking that our worth does come from the external world. So there's no, it's I always say that there's no judgment around how we think because that's how we've been taught to think. But once you get sight of the fact that actually we are ourselves in control of our entire reality, then we can really start going to work and we'll start seeing a different way of different results. We can create who we want to be rather than who we've been told to be. And it all starts with the process of self-inquiry. And yeah, to your point, for me, like books, podcasts, trainings, I've done them all. But for anyone to start just the process of self-inquiry is really looking at, firstly, the step one is get notice of your thinking. Start noticing the inner chatter that's going on, whether you're looking at them in the mirror and you hear your voice say you're ugly or you're getting fat or you're getting old, or look at those wrinkles or anything like that, which we actually we're so used to that voice that we just take it on now. We ignore it, but our subconscious is listening to it all. So step one is become aware, start noticing what you're telling yourself. And then step two is the process of really starting to acknowledge our feelings. What am I feeling? What is that thought? What feeling state is that thought provoking in me, or creating, or dictating? And where does it feel? So name the emotion, and then ask yourself: is the thought true? Is it true? And most of the time, if we're really stuck in a belief that looks 100% real to us, we'll go, yes, it's true. But the thing about the word truth and about truth in itself and about facts is it has to be true all the time. It has to be objective, so it has to be true for everyone. So you can sometimes find, let's take the mirror example. Sometimes you can look at yourself and go, I look great. I look pretty sassy. I'm feeling good about myself. So it can't be true in that I look in the mirror one day and I think I look ugly, and then the next day I think I look good. So there's something at play here, and what's at play is our inner narrative. So we start to come to trust it, but through the process of, and believe it, and through the process of self-inquiry, we can start just seeing, actually, a lot of the stuff that's going on up there is absolute nonsense. So step one, become aware of it. Step two, what's the feeling it's dictating? And one and two are kind of, I bring in the feeling state because sometimes we're not aware of the thought, but we feel something. So the feeling state in itself can alert us to we've got some thinking going on. So one or two, whichever you're aware of first. And then three, is it true? So if the answer to the third step, is it true, is yes, then step four is do I 100% know it to be true? Has it been true for me always? Does everyone else agree? Is this a universal truth? If I go and ask somebody else, will they have the same perspective as me? So that starts sort of busting that truth myth. And then step 5 is there another way for me to see this? Is there another perspective of me seeing this situation, circumstance, experience? And I love the analogy. I don't know where I saw it, but one meme somewhere, but it was pretty much where 7.9 billion people around the world having a very different experience of today. And, to me, that's such a beautiful example. Like the day stays the same, but everybody else is having a very different experience of it because we're living in the world of our thinking. We're living in the world of thought.
That is so true that when we look at it, every single human being, and you can think of people going through the same streets every single day, going to the same office every single day, siblings growing up in the same families, or couples living in the same household, and yet they will have very different experiences of the same things, of the same street, of the same job, of the same movie. Because literally from even before we're born, we already are such a bundle of unique sensation and experiences that then just shape our reality. And it's something that I think we need to really be reminded of a lot, especially these days when we live in such a divisive society, when there is so much pressure from the outside of this is my truth, this is your truth, my truth is better than your truth. To then be like, we all have our unique perspectives, we have all our unique experiences, and the filters that we always will have and the biases that we will always will have just make us who we are.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. I call it separate realities, which is basically, yeah, I can't have the same view, the same worldview as you do, because exactly what you just said, Lenka, so beautifully. And so that allows us to come into a conversation with more compassion and curiosity. Like, oh, how do you see this topic? It's a wonderful way of exploring challenging conversations, actually, or conflict, is to come into the conversation rather than everyone, usually people put their boxing gloves on and go, you need to see my point, you're a moron, like you're in whatever. So coming into a conversation with, this is my point of view, but I appreciate that you're not going to be able to see it. You're probably not going to see it the same. So, I'd love to hear from you. What's your perspective? How do you see this situation? So yeah, compassion and curiosity is when we can actually understand that the way I see the world is different from the way you see the world, and there's no right or wrong.
But one thing I know is that you're a person who sees the world in a very positive way. From your LinkedIn, from your content, I always have a feeling that you have this wonderful, positive, upbeat energy that, you don't take yourself too seriously. You're very open about, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your quirks, and you just put it all out there, raw and unpolished and unapologetic. And I love that. But I can imagine that maybe this hasn't always been you, or even if it has been, hasn't always been easy. So I would love to touch a little bit more on where this confidence and conviction and comfort with just showing yourself as you are and bringing this incredibly vibrant and positive energy into the world. Speaking, obviously, well, I know you mostly from LinkedIn, but I'm sure it's all across the board, everywhere where you are. Where this comes from, and how do you maintain this upbeat vibe for most of the time, from what I've seen?
I grew up in a very positive family environment. My dad was sort of, he was very he was in the bank, but it's also sort of like a lot of the talks that he'd do sort of bordered on, management, but finance, consultant slash motivational speaker. So, I was growing up on Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie, and if it is to be, it's up to me. And I think he thrust into my hands the Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was 13 years old. My brother was 15 and my sister was 17, so we were all taught to read that. I might have even been younger, but it's been a very positive upbringing. And also, to your point, the I grew up, in the shadows, I would say, of a brother who was, like I used to call him, he had the golden touch. Everything he touched was turned to gold. Like he was excellent at everything. And so I was also good and, got into in terms of like representing Hawke's Bay for tennis. He got number one, I got number four. So there was things like that. So, you look at it now from the eyes of an adult and you think, gosh, I was pretty tough on myself. But as a child growing up, I was just never good enough. I felt. And it was all my stuff. I never got made to feel like that within the family at all. But I literally grew up with this sort of victim mentality. I'm not good enough, inadequacy, which is likely where the imposter syndrome came from as well. So, to your point, like I've always been positive, but there's always been a part of me that has felt, I didn't belong, not good enough. And coming into the age of sort of 35 when I started this work, that was the first sort of stuff that I looked at. And I also think within, self-inquiry and personal development, you don't look at these things once and they're gone, they come around again and again and again. But aside from mindset work and understanding how our mind works, I then got into the work of energetics and studying the sort of the unseen force that powers our results, that powers our actions, that thoughts and beliefs are an energy force. And so the more I understood the energetics of how we operate and that everything's energy and we're always operating on a frequency, it made sense to me that I wanted to be in joy and I wanted to be in gratitude and I wanted to be in appreciation and those vibrational frequencies more often, because that was going to behoove me and everyone else. I don't know where that word behoove came from, but there you are. And when I'm in states of poor me, victim, and sadness, and worry and fear, well, sure enough, because the way energetics work, I would attract more of that to me. So it doesn't make sense for me now, despite having challenges and upsets. I don't remember the last time I had a sad or a bad day. I might have, a moment, a half an hour max, but I can't even remember. Probably around the COVID times was the last time. But all to say, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Mindset and energetics literally change your life and change the way you see everything for the better.
I love how you've, really embraced the way that, mindset is and have almost taken what you've learned from growing up, the positiveness. And I don't think many 13 years old get given the Dale Carnegie book, which maybe more of us should be given them, to help us on our journey and how to make friends. But it's so, so nice to hear how you were on that path, even though you were hard on yourself, and yet has managed to find your way back to the positivity and to the gratitude and just finding that joy in yourself as well as in life. And I love how you said something about that truth is finding that real truth. Is it really true? That for me was like, that's interesting. That is something that, you can sit and think, yeah, but it is true. But is it really? So saying, sharing that was like, yes. It might be early in the morning here, but there's my lesson for the day to work on and really think about. So, thank you for that and for sharing that. I think it's really powerful, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners can really embrace and start to ask themselves, is it true? But is it really true? And so I just wanted to share that with you. And you use something about, our minds are constant. I mean, they are just constantly chitter chatter and everything else. And we actually had a guest on a few months ago who called it the shitty committee, and actually shifting it to not being such a shitty committee. Those were her words. But
Love it.
it is right, is we live through our our thoughts or our mind, instead of realizing that our mind is separate to us. We are not our minds. And again, we've had another guest, explaining we are separate from our minds. We are not the thoughts that we are thinking. And when we realize and acknowledge, hang on, that's my mind, that's not me, then it's almost like once having that awareness, it's okay, now what do I do? And this is must be when you would come in, is with the energy and focusing and starting to be aware of what we're saying. Because I don't know about you, but half the time I don't even know what's going on in there. And I think it's once we're aware of it, it's, oh, hang on, yeah, let's shift that to something different. Let's shift what's going on there. And it's not, as you said, it's not just a one time and it's done. It's a process, and it can be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, because we are human, and it's not just a one fix and then it's all sorted. And it can have its ups and downs. You can have a day where that shitty committee just seems to take control, and it's like, what happened? But I think it's not giving up. It's just to keep going. It's just to find a way to keep going. So what I wanted to ask you is, for our listeners who are might be sort of on the beginning, they're becoming aware of what's going on in their heads. They're becoming aware that they actually have the power in themselves to change, and they're most probably doing great and those 3 steps forward, but then something might just knock them back. What advice would you share, or what tools can you use to not give up, to find a way forward? Because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, and when you start to change and start to look at things differently, your environment is impacted, because you're not always necessarily supported by colleagues or family or friends. You might sometimes even be jeered at or mocked. And it's not easy to go on a personal development journey and, start to really connect with yourself. So not only do you have that shitty committee going on, but you've got your environment going on as well, and which you are trying to change. Can you just share some sort of ways that have worked for you to keep moving forward? Because I'm sure they don't want to give up, but sometimes we just get lost.
Yeah, sure. Well, I want to firstly, I want to address the shitty committee, and I know there's a lot of, like, I love that terminology. It's hilarious, and there's a lot of monkey mind and et cetera, et cetera. Where where it's, I think, made a difference in my work and my outlook is I actually am super grateful for that part of my mind, because without it, it is there to protect me. It's 100% doing what it's designed to do. And without that part of my mind, I would have no experience of life. I can't experience life without that part of my mind. So I think compassion is really helpful on this journey. Compassion for ourselves, for our learning, for our journey, and for how we're designed, because we're perfectly, perfectly made. So firstly, yeah, is to notice, rather than berating it, as a lot of people do, and that's also a kind of a form of self-harm, right? Because at the end of the day, the subconscious still knows you're talking to yourself. So if you're saying, shut up, get out, it's still kind of self-harm. So I like to sort of speak to it like it's, a small child, because effectively that's what it is, small child. So there's that, which I think is quite helpful, just to be softly, just to be compassionate. This journey is long. I've been on it, myself 10 years, which is, some people would say, is a baby in this sort of in this sort of work. And I'm constantly learning. There's so much to learn about it. And then the second part to your point about 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, awareness is everything. To be aware means that we can change it. So even if it feels like, oh, why is this still coming up for me? I've dealt with this 2 years ago. I dealt with it 5 years ago. It's still coming up for me. I would invite you to look at how quickly did it come? How quickly did you become aware of it this time? How we are always changing. Like, it's not that we're going back, we're just seeing it quicker, and we're potentially, if we go into it, then maybe we came out of it a lot quicker this time. Maybe I was having a bad day when I first started, and now it's a bad afternoon. Maybe I want to wrap myself in a duvet and watch, rather than watch a movie marathon. Maybe I'm just watching one movie. So awareness means that we can't go backwards. We can't go back to the consciousness we had before, when we've already evolved our consciousness. So that's to say, for listeners, like, always be heartened. This work is powerful and you can never go backwards. Just start noticing more about what you're noticing. And then to say, okay, well, now I'm aware of it. Rather than getting upset with myself, congratulate myself, saying, well done, you noticed it. Good on you for noticing. I'm so grateful that I've had awareness of this work. I'm so grateful I'm aware of that I'm creating my own reality. Wow, I've come so far from where I used to be. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And once we start, I'm back into the energetics here, but once we start changing the feeling state from, I'm such a doofus, why can't I can't learn this, to well done for picking it up. I'm so pleased with it. Well done, I'm so grateful. Now we're starting to change the energy of our feeling states. Gratitude is a high vibrational frequency. Shame, disappointment, fear, anxiety, low vibrational frequencies. So it's almost like if you're really in one, down the low vibrational frequency, the way that you kind of want to claw yourself back quickly, not quickly, but sorry, slowly claw yourself back. It's not to say, I'm feeling terrible. Oh, I feel great. It's not this toxic, positivity. It's literally, what can I see about this situation that's good? Is there a lesson for me in this? Have I learned something new about myself? So we're slowly trying to turn the oil tanker of doubt and self-loathing to self-love, and I call it the ascension process, which is literally taking ourselves from low vibrational frequency slowly, slowly, slowly up, through the process of gratitude and awareness.
And I'm also thinking, as you explaining that, and I love how you said we can't go back. It's like, yes, I'm really pleased about that. But I love, so from what I'm thinking is, it's also about being kind in your imperfections, because we're not all good at everything. Everybody has their unique talents, has their unique way of doing things, but we're not all good at everything. And I'm not good at maths. I love maths, but I don't understand it. And maybe I could sit and really try and get my head around it. But I also find that's okay that I'm not good at maths, because I'm good at something else. And I think it's, in this process, it's also about being kind in your imperfections. Instead of berating yourself for not being able to do something, whether it's a lack of practice or just your brain's not wired that way, it's okay. We're not all going to become musicians. We're not all going to become brilliant painters. We're not all going to become scientists. But it's embracing what we can do, learn what we want to learn, and find, we can always learn new things. But it's also okay not to be good at other things that maybe don't necessarily interest us, or just find difficult to grasp. And I don't really want to push myself into learning why you use the alphabet in mathematics, because I just enjoy what maths can do. And I know that maths is not my strong suit, but that's okay. I don't need to be a mathematician. And I think that more of us need to be kinder to ourselves with those imperfections, because they are part of who we are. It's not about beating ourselves up about it, but just, okay, but you know what? That person over there, they're really brilliant at maths. But guess what? They can't sew like I can. So, you know, we'll balance each other out. And I think that's so important. It's not just always what we're good at, but let's enjoy what we're not good at, because otherwise we can really beat ourselves up and have that imposter syndrome, because why can't I be like that? I'm not worthy, and they're so much better, you know, then you go into comparatolitis and everything else. So I think from what you're saying is just be kind to ourselves for our imperfections and embrace them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, I would, even the term imperfection, like we're perfectly designed. We really are. Like, the more you study the human body, you just see we are walking miracles. The way that everything interconnects, the way that everything works perfectly, but it works perfectly for us. You know, it works perfectly for us. I'm very different to you, Natalie, to you, Lenka, like in terms of my strengths, what I'm good at, my passions. And so it wouldn't make sense for me to look out at someone else and go, oh, look at her, she's really good at that, and I'm terrible. If it's like horse riding, for example, and I've never ridden a horse in my life, nor do I want to. So, you know, it's really looking at what lights me up. And, you know, one of my email signature is always is enjoy. I sign off as enjoy, because like we are designed to be enjoy, to enjoy life, to enjoy whatever we're doing. So what is that for you? Like, what lights you up? I think that's our journey. What lights me up? What brings me joy? And do that, because that keeps us in that joyful frequency. It keeps us in the gratitude and the playfulness. You know, we've lost the art of having fun and playing like children, and you know, everything's so serious. And I think that's the seriousness is what's causing a lot of our dis-ease and our distress. But to your point, sorry, yes, went on a tangent there, but certainly, absolutely being kind to ourselves and being compassionate, it has to start with us. If we know that everything's an inner game, an inside job, which it is, then it has to start with being kind and compassionate and caring and loving ourselves. Because when we do that, that then emanates from the inside. We work from the inside out. Always. So if you're not loving yourself, then to the level we love ourselves is to the level that we expect all others to love us, right? So it's got to start with us.
Oh, we love a good tangent. As always, we get some really good bits out of a good tangent. And you're right, it is about you know, the compassion, but having more fun. It's almost like you become an adult, so now you're adulting, no more fun. Childhood's done, now get on with it, because fun is frivolous and a waste of time. And it's something a lot of our guests, you know, that we've have mentioned, you know, start to embrace more fun, have more fun. And this is something that I'm personally trying to implement more into my life. I'm not always successful with it, but I think that is really powerful. And it's something that I've noticed coming from a grey, you know, dark, cold UK back to South Africa for a while. And I appreciate that I'm here almost as a foreigner, because I haven't lived here for so long. But just the difference in lifestyles, just the difference in the way people live. And it's something that I'm very conscious of, how people live their daily lives. And in the UK, a lot of it is cooped up in homes. It's cooped up in front of the television. You go to work, you go home, you go to work, you go home. And with a lot of the pub closures, you know, people used to then socialize right at the pub. And because it's raining most of the year, as Claire, I'm sure you know, having lived there for 20 years, it rains a lot. You don't want to be out, you know, meeting people, and it's dark now early in the evenings, and it's cold, it's miserable. So where are you going to go? Whereas here and in South Africa, and it's probably the same for you in New Zealand, it's much more outdoors. It's much more, well, going into summer now, and you meet people outdoors. It's more sporty. There's more activity because it's blue skies and sunny. And it just seems, as I said, I'm here not with the daily grind. It just seems more positive and easier in a way to have that fun. So living in a climate that's cold and dark is consciously finding that fun, whether it's through a hobby or maybe meeting up with friends in your own home or in their homes, and not relying on external entertainment, and that meaning pubs or restaurants, but finding ways to bring more fun into your life with neighbors, friends, colleagues, whoever it is that you want to do, to consciously find more fun, more ways of doing it. Play a board game or something, or whatever it is. And I think that can be something really powerful, is to consciously bring more fun into our lives, to consciously find ways to doing it. Because it's not just going to, turn up on the front door, knock on it and go, hey, I'm fun, come on, let's go. We've got to find it, because, a 9-to-5 job, you might not enjoy your job. So how can you find a little bit of fun at work? It's dark when you get to work. It's dark when you're going home. And I think it's requiring a bit more of an effort from us to consciously find more fun in our lives. Am I sort of on the right track there?
Yes, I understand. I totally understand what you're saying. And I think what we've got to be mindful of is back to the cycle of reality. Our thoughts and beliefs create our feelings create our behavior creates our actions, and our actions create our results. So it's an inner game. So when we start expecting, thinking that the weather or other people can make us feel something, we are going down a slippery slope to potential a state of mind where we're starting to rely on other things to bring us joy. And I think the weather's a great example, and I only used it because you mentioned the UK. I know I love the sun. I follow the sun around, as I mentioned at the start. And I also have friends who can't bear it. So for them, winter, I'm flattered with, a dear friend for years. She used to love the winter. She'd be out in t-shirts, and but come summer, she couldn't bear it. She couldn't bear the heat. So it's showing again that separate realities, right? But what it's also saying is the sun doesn't make me happy. The sun can't make us happy. If it had the capacity to make us happy, it would have to make me happy all the time and everyone happy all the time. And I certainly know that I've been in turmoil in the sun as well. I've been in times in my life, I love the beach, but there's been times in my life when I've been down at the beach in tears. So it's not the beach that makes me happy. It's not the sun that makes me happy. It's my thinking and my thoughts in that moment that are creating my reality. So all that to say, yes, we need to, what lights us up, what brings us joy, but it's also remembering it's a very subtle line that I'm pointing to, because I say what brings us joy, what thoughts and beliefs about the thing bring us joy, right? So, I mean, we can see that our thoughts change all the time. I couldn't bear mushrooms. Now I love mushrooms on toast, or olives, couldn't bear olives, love olives now. So we know that our thoughts are changing all the time. Get a song on the radio that you love, and like every time it comes on, it's amazing. And then it gets absolutely thrashed and overdone. And then the next thing you know, you can't bear that song every time it comes on the radio. Some people love Christmas songs, some people hate them. So again, we're only living from our own mental reality. So yeah, find the joy, find the play. But the beauty of that is that we don't actually have to rely on external sources for it. It's all coming from our own mind anyway. So we can look at that, like what thoughts light me up.
to me, this brings us nicely back to the energetics of, how can we get ourselves to be a bit more energetically aligned to make sure that, what we seek in the world, the mission, the vision, the purpose, the desires that we have, that we are on the path that really makes sense to us, that our energies are aligned, and that also we're not allowing the energies to kind of leak anywhere, that we are paying attention to what are the holes in our energy system, that our energy often leaks away and takes us out of the alignment. And I know, again, energetics is a huge thing for you. So could you tell us a little bit about, how do we know that we're energetically aligned or misaligned? How do we notice what might be draining our energy and what might be leaking our energy and taking us out of the alignment? Kind of, are there any, again, practices? Are there any tools, any mantras, any systems that you've been using that can help us to really feel that we are aligned with our energies and we're in control of our energy system, and we know when it's shifting how to bring it back into alignment?
Yeah, I mean it's a very big question. And I'll be here all day because I love talking about energetics. But to break it down and to start small is to really, again, awareness, as I said, is the key to start with anything. So starting to be aware of how you're feeling. Like energetics, it's the feeling state. And what energetics is the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions. Are they in alignment with our true nature, with who we truly are, with our authentic selves, and with our vision or with our purpose? So it's very easy to see if we're out of alignment. I work with a lot of, like I mentioned, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and this is the first question we look at is where are you not happy in your life with the results, with your external reality, with what's going on in your life? What are you not happy with? So we can see that if there's an area that we're consistently experiencing frustration or stress or a lack of joy, then we pretty much can know that we're out of alignment. So it's very easy. Look outside, see what areas that you're not happy about consistently, not just on a day, but consistently, and recognize, okay, I'm in this area of my life, I'm out of alignment. And so what is it? First of all, it would be like, what do you want to be happening for you? What's your vision? And so who am I? So let me give you an example. And this is actually something I experienced myself. So when I was starting in my business in 2017, all happy, excited about bringing coaching to the world and my perspective. And I was in it for about 3 years. I was working part-time. I was working in my brother's business at the same time. I was consulting to him and I was growing my coaching practice. But for the first 3 years, I was, felt like I was doing all the things. This is why I can speak to it with coaches. And when I was working with clients, I was really passionate about it. I was loving being in the conversations and we would get, supporting them, getting great results. And so I knew that I was in alignment with my purpose, but my business wasn't growing. And so that's when I started learning, I think it was around 2020 where I started learning about energetics. And I recognized that who I was being wasn't in alignment with my vision, with the vision of my business. Who I was being was someone who I'd put out, have conversations and put out proposals, but it would be like, oh, they're probably going to say no, they're probably not going to want it, or maybe it's too expensive. I'm not sure if will I be able to deliver on what I say I'm going to do. There was it was laced with with self-doubt. So that was the energy, that was the energetics that I was putting into my business. So to the level I was getting my results, was my success, was to the level of the moments that I would be in alignment and talking to people and and offering my services and being in sales conversations. But I didn't know any of that. So it's not that my business wasn't a success. I think I made 20 grand made nothing in the first year, 20 grand in the second year, and then it started growing from there. But it wasn't growing much. It was growing very slowly. And I recognized that it's not what I was doing, because I was doing all the things and I was stretching myself on, as much as I thought with technical, understanding technicalities of, websites, and I was trying to be a marketing specialist, and I was showing up on LinkedIn and I was learning video. So I felt like I was growing, but it wasn't so much what I was doing, it was the energy I was doing it with, and who was I being when I was doing those things. And I was, a lot of the time being someone who didn't back herself, who didn't believe in herself. And so, of course, the results, if that's the energy I'm putting out, then that's the energy I'm going to come back. So that's an example of recognizing, there's something not right here. And a lot of the times, if you're consistently, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you've been consistently putting out work, and you feel like you're sort of like the swan under the, or your legs are going 10 to the dozen under the water, then I would, urge you to take a look at energetics, because it could be that your energy's out of alignment. Now, how do we alter it? So the first thing I did was I looked at, where was I not being the person that I desired to be? So I looked at, who did I want to be? And what were the characteristics of that person who had the business that I wanted, who was working with the clients that I wanted, who was giving the impact that I wanted, what were the characteristics of that person? And then started working from there. And then a lot of what I was doing as well was, in order to get into that state of, that high vibrational frequency, the energetics of the person who I wanted to be, was gratitude. Like, I 100% say to anyone, gratitude will change your life. And I don't mean just in the, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my life, I'm grateful for, or writing on your journal, I'm grateful for this, the rote that we've all been taught to do. I mean gratitude to the level of, you're almost in tears. This is so amazing. My life is so incredible. I'm so blessed. And not for the things I have. They're the icing on the cake, but for who I'm being, for how I am, for the way that we're designed, for the life that we get to live, every single one of us, right? Like, even if the listeners that are listening to this, even if you're in a moment or a season where life looks really terrible for you and nothing seems to be going right, there will still be something that you can look at and go, I'm so grateful for this. And it just starts with true, authentic gratitude. And I tell you, gratitude sees gratitude, value sees value, joy sees joy. So the more you start sitting in gratitude, the more things that will come into your awareness that you can be grateful for. The more you start experiencing joy, the more things come into your awareness that you can be joyful for, because that is energetics. The energy we put out has to come back to us. It's how it works. This isn't woo-woo stuff now. We've been 100 years into quantum physics and quantum mechanics. So, there's studies that show all of this. And so, it's the easiest thing to do, but it's got to be authentic. You've got to really feel the gratitude, because it's all about our feeling states. That's the energy behind our feelings.
Wow, this is awesome. This is powerful, and absolutely a huge fan of like genuine, intentional, deep gratitude, because I think that's this is the simplest thing in a way. It's the simplest practice we all can have, that doesn't require that much training or it requires practice, but doesn't require anything other than just our own conviction of, yes, I'm really truly grateful for the things I have in my life, and even in the future, of being grateful for the good things that are going to come to my way, of kind of manifesting and projecting, and being grateful for the wonderful future that I'm designing and I'm desiring and I'm creating. So I think gratitude is wonderful. We could talk with you forever, but I have one question that I'm curious about. What's next for you? What is your vision? Where are you heading right now? What is on your, vision board for 2025 beyond? What are you learning? What are you curious about? I want to know a bit more about, where do you see going forward?
So this energetics is more it's such my passion, mind and energy, and it's it's kind of sometimes when I'm with my friends whether my coaching friends, two of my dearest friends that I that I've known probably in my life since 2016 now, but they're my coaching buddies. So when we all catch up together, I'll be talking about this and they go, Clary, you've got an hour of this max, and then we're moving on to something else. So I get a time limit with them. But all that to say, I mean, I just love it. I'm so passionate about it. And I haven't really marketed myself much around energetics. But 2025 is going to be all about that. I'm about to release something next week, actually, that's very, very exciting. So watch this space, which is all about my 2025 plans and, bringing people along into this powerful transformational work. It's my heart. And I think to what you were saying before is, with this part of our mind that we were speaking to Natalie, that, that can seem sort of like the chitter chatter brain. That's the part that's fearful and limited and lacking because it's trying to keep us safe. So it's always looking out for, what's this? How is this going to affect me? So what that part of our mind does is it gives us a propensity to look at all the things that we don't have. We look around at our incredible life and we go, oh, but that's not right. And then we fixate on that one thing that isn't right. And I see this a lot, and I did it myself in the early days on LinkedIn, when you started growing an audience and you put out a post and you'd get like everyone like commenting and liking, and then one person, you'd get a scathing comment, and you'd sit there and you'd focus on it. And that's when I started thinking, this is not right. There's 99 people who've said this is fabulous and I can totally see where you're going, and one person can't. And why is it that I'm looking at that person? So we do have this tendency to look to the negatives. And there we draw ourselves down the slippery slope of a lack mentality. And once we're living in that state of mind, then that's all we tend to see. So I'm really passionate about bringing people along into understanding, the truth of how this works. We are all creators of our own reality. We can all create our lives by design. And I 100% know this to be true. I've seen it too many times for it not to be true. And so I'm passionate about sharing it with as many people as possible. So that's my plans for 2025.
Wow, this sounds amazing and so exciting. And 2025 is just around the corner. So
it really is.
We wish you absolute the best and look forward to seeing you on that journey. The energetics that you've brought in, it's something that I'm slowly getting my head around, slowly learning about, and I love the way you speak. And I can get why your friends say, Terry, you've only got an hour to talk about this, because your face does light up. You can see even through the screen how passionate you are about it. And it sounds like a really intriguing topic and something to keep looking at and keep my eyes open and ears open and just finding. And for our listeners as well, I mean, energetics is something that I think we've brushed on a couple of times, but it's through a different conversation. So thank you for really bringing it more into our awareness and into our scope of learning new things, because Blanca and I, we just love to learn new things. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
This is a part where what we call the golden nugget. Hop on to our Patreon account to get this episode's amazing and wonderful gold nugget. So we've appreciated your energy, your enthusiasm, your knowledge, sharing it today. It's interesting. I'm looking at your background and it's slightly got darker than it was earlier. So you're slowly going into your evening. But thank you so much for sharing. Now, if our listeners, they wanted to connect with you, they want to find out more about energetics, or they just want to find out how you've learned to follow the sun, or whatever it is, how can people connect with you?
Best place is on LinkedIn. So I'm Claire Sewell on LinkedIn, and you'll probably put my link in the notes, I guess. Or my email is Claire, CLAIRE, @swellcoach.co.uk.
Yeah, we will put all your links so people can just click and connect with you. Thank you so much for sharing all that you've shared with us today. We really appreciate it. And it just shows how wonderful it is to have this technology, we are literally from the north right straight down to the south in 3 totally separated locations, but yet we're able to connect. So I'm just so grateful for the abilities to do this, and thank you for sharing.
There's that gratitude again, and it's been an absolute joy. Thank you for inviting me.
And to our listeners, what have you got from this conversation today? Is energetics something that you're thinking, ooh, that's something I really want to focus on? Or is gratitude something that you want to get your teeth around, or something that you want to do a bit more than just writing in a journal? We've had other guests talking about gratitude and compassion, and we've now just had Claire really digging deeper into that and coming with her perspective. So what are your thoughts on gratitude and energetics and quantum physics and everything that we've discussed today? We'd love to know what you've got from this conversation, what you've learned from this conversation. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.